and welcome. I had a thought before starting recording today that nothing is wasted, that every drop of our existence is in some way serving us, not just as individuals but serving life itself in all its forms. The interconnectedness, a word that has come up in the Miracle of Mindfulness book that we are reading. Even the moments of being unconscious, the moments, hours, the weeks, years, decades of being unconscious, it's all serving. It may have just taken that long to move towards consciousness, and there is no right or wrong timescale for that. Just like when a flower blooms, if it blooms, it takes longer for one flower to bloom than the other. There's no right or wrong there. There's no should haves, should have bloomed earlier. There are no thoughts of why is it taken so long? Why couldn't I have awakened 20 years ago when I was happy? So just simply acknowledge the body, acknowledge the mind. What is the mind doing? Is it settled? Is it feeding you a thought? Just allow it to be as it is. Is the body in pain or discomfort? Just allow the awareness to settle, to not label, just accept this moment. The body is as it is in this moment. The mind is as it is in this moment. You are here as you are in this moment. You being the present moment, not your name or any other identities, labels you have for yourself. Just there is only the now. Can this be experienced? Are you able to let go into the now, Remember, the now is a place of openness, of complete relaxation. It's not an effort, there's no concentration or focus needed to okay, I must step into the now, stop thinking, stop. It's the relinquishing of everything, complete surrender. So I'll shortly continue reading from The Miracle of Mindfulness. And I would like to, once this book we have gone through it, is to just a thought of looking ahead. And looking ahead is fine, as long as it's not a pattern, it's not a reality of always looking to the future. So right now I have the thought of, after this book, perhaps we can read A New Earth. And it's just a thought, it's not something I have to hold on to. It's not waiting to be able to read this book. It's okay. There's a urge to pick up this book afterwards and to go through that. And perhaps after The Miracle of Mindfulness, maybe this will change. I'll be reading a different book. But there'll be no expectations, no rigidity to this. And is there anything you are holding on to in this moment? A plan, expectations of something you're attending or somebody you're seeing. Maybe you have expectations about them, how they should act and how they should be. Expectations about the day you're having. You may have, it should be a great day today, or it's going to be a miserable day today. I've got to do all these things. I've got to see this person who I don't like. I've got to do this task or job that it's stressful. And what this is a moving away from the present moment, from what's here. You are in thought forms and there's a constriction, a reaction happening in your body. And you are already there, even though you may be sat peacefully listening, but with the thought of the stress or the potential happiness, you're far away from the here and now. You are in a place of wanting or a place of aversion, not wanting. And there's always an energy charge to that when you want something or when you don't want something. You can almost feel it. Wanting something, there's almost a tension or stress of already wanting it to happen, already wanting that moment to be this moment. And aversion is rejecting this moment, even though you are not actually performing the task or seeing the person you do want to see, but it's as if you already are in that moment, and you're rejecting it, you're pushing it away, and that has its own effect, its own impression. Sometimes when you're in that frequency enough, it will have an effect on you. Perhaps, part of your body may start aching, you may develop a headache, you may become very tired. So even these subtle thoughts, fleeting sometimes, but each of them can have an impression on you, an impact. And if there's something where you're thinking over and over, that charge is happening over in your body and in your mind, again and again. Sometimes we are feeding ourselves, one spoon at a time of stress via thoughts. If someone was to put a spoonful of stress in front of you and say, "Would you like some?" It's highly probable that we'd say, "No, I wouldn't. I don't want any more." But with our thoughts, that's what we are doing. We are generating the stress. But we're so used to the frequency, the mental noise, that we don't realize it's happening. And I use the example of a spoon being, because it's something new, something we can see and be aware of, but by being identified in the mind, we don't even see the spoon coming to our mouth and absorbing the stress. It's happening in an instant, again and again. And all of this stress doesn't have to be undone or unthought. It's just simply letting go and surrendering to the now, where the noise of thought ceases. Thoughts may arise, but you are no longer following them. They are no longer taking hold. They are no longer giving a charge. They are no longer affecting you in that way. It's as if it's almost something in the background. Before, they may have been in the foreground, like a loudspeaker, thoughts coming, and each thought you're addressing and giving it attention. But now, it's almost a distant noise, such as the noise of traffic. It's there, but it's not in the forefront of your awareness any longer. Okay, so let's continue reading from The Miracle of Mindfulness. And we are on a passage that's titled, "Meditation Reveals and Heals." Sitting in mindfulness, both our bodies and minds can be at peace and totally relaxed. But this state of peace and relaxation differs fundamentally from the lazy, semi-conscious state of mind that one gets while resting and dozing. Sitting in such lazy semi-consciousness, far from being mindfulness, is like sitting in a dark cave. In mindfulness, one is not only restful and happy, but alert and awake. Meditation is not evasion. It is a serene encounter with reality. The person who practices mindfulness should be no less awake than the driver of a car. If the practitioner isn't awake, he will be possessed by dispersion and forgetfulness, just as the drowsy driver is likely to cause a grave accident. Be as awake as a person walking on high stilts. Any misstep could cause the walker to fall. Be like a medieval knight walking, weaponless in a forest of swords. Be like a lion, going forward with slow, gentle, and firm steps. Only with this kind of vigilance can you realize total awakening. For beginners, I recommend the method of pure recognition. Recognition without judgment. Feelings, whether of compassion or irritation, should be welcomed, recognized, and treated on an absolutely equal basis, because both are ourselves. The tangerine I am eating is me. The mustard greens I am planting are me. I plant with all my heart and mind. I clean this teapot with the kind of attention I would have were I giving the baby Buddha or Jesus a bath. Nothing should be treated more carefully than anything else. In mindfulness, compassion, irritation, mustard green plant, and teapot are all sacred. When possessed by a sadness, an anxiety, a hatred, or a passion, or whatever, the method of pure observation and recognition may seem difficult to practice. If so, turn to meditation on a fixed object, using your own state of mind as meditation's subject. Such meditation reveals and heals. The sadness or anxiety, hatred or passion, under the gaze of concentration and meditation, reveals its own nature, a revelation that leads naturally to healing and emancipation. The sadness, or whatever has caused the pain, can be used as a means of liberation from torment and suffering, like using a thorn to remove a thorn. We should treat our anxiety, our pain, our hatred and passion gently, respectfully, not resisting it, but living with it, making peace with it, penetrating into its nature by meditation on interdependence. One quickly learns how to select subjects of meditation that fit the situation. Subjects of meditation like interdependence, compassion, self, emptiness, non-attachment. All these belong to the categories of meditation which have the power to reveal and heal. Meditation on these subjects, however, can only be successful if we have built up a certain power of concentration, a power achieved by the practice of mindfulness in everyday life, in the observation and recognition of all that is going on. But the objects of meditation must be realities that have real roots in yourselves, not just subjects of philosophical speculation. Each should be like a kind of food that must be cooked for a long time over a hot fire. We put in a pot, cover it, and light the fire. The pot is ourselves, and the heat used to cook it is the power of concentration. The fuel comes from the continuous practice of mindfulness. Without enough heat, the food will never be cooked. But once cooked, the food reveals its true nature and helps lead us to liberation. So I'm going to end the reading there. I feel sometimes when taking in some spiritual wisdom via a book or even through an audio or video, sometimes even listening to a short amount is enough. And perhaps reading or listening or watching more may not be as beneficial. I always remember Mooji mentioning that sometimes we need to, chew and digest the food before having any more. So in this passage it's talking about recognition and observation, and doing it in such a way where it's all from that centered space, so you're not giving more attention to one particular task than the other. Everything is, and there's no figuring out there, okay, I need to give this amount of concentration to this as just as this, because coming from that place of centeredness, that automatically takes care of itself. When you are aware, you are simply aware. And you can give that awareness to each task that you do, whether it's walking to the kitchen or, cleaning the teapot, as is mentioned in the book. So giving that same attention, that equal attention there to every task that you do. Nothing is more important than another thing. And Tai mentions that if there is difficulty in this, then you can turn to meditation. And he mentions a few of the techniques or the focus points of meditation, whether it's the self, emptiness, and it's using this as almost a way to help with the observation. It's almost as if it's an extra support there for you as you're observing. So when you are in the meditation, and he mentions the example of sadness or anxiety, something that's painful. It may be painful to observe on its own, but using a meditation, it can perhaps give you a little bit of space from that, so you can observe it almost. The meditation can be a buffer between the pain and yourself as the experiencer of it. And there is the mention of building up this practice for it to be effective, for allowing the suffering to reveal its nature, to understand there needs to be a level of experience of observing. When you first observe something, you may only understand the outline of it. You may only grasp the shape of it, but perhaps the more you observe, perhaps then you may sense some emotions from this, the texture of this. Just as looking at a piece of paper is different to having it in your hands, or smelling the paper, experiencing the touch of it. And so Tai is saying that there is a level of practice needed before there is a depth established here, where when a painful emotion is observed or is brought into the meditation, a healing can take place. A healing meaning the nature of that sadness reveals itself, and in that revelation there is the healing there, because you realize, you understand its nature. And in the understanding of it, there is almost a dissolution of it, a dissolving. Okay, thank you for joining me for today's episode. I wish you well, as always, in this moment, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.